Hello everyone, and welcome to a layout tour video. Something kind of different compared to what I usually do, but I've had a couple of comments from people saying, you know, getting a bit confused as to where parts are on the layout when I speak about them. So I thought I'd do this kind of layout tour to give you an idea of where things are on the layout. So let's get straight into it. Okay, so if we look down in from the door of the garage, that gives you a rough idea of the direction that everything's facing in. Now on the right hand side you can see is the TMD area. A lot of you guys are very familiar with this. Obviously this is where the main bulk of video updates and running sessions have been, because this is the main area that's been completed on the layout. As we scroll back you can see that the incline starts to go down and then runs underneath and then down into the Fiddle Yard, if I just move all the junk out of the way. Yeah, so the layout consists of 2 tracks, as you all well know, and down in the Fiddle Yard I do believe I have 15 lanes, and they'll be explained a little bit later in the video when we go down to the lower baseboard. But this gives you a rough idea of where everything is. If we scroll over to the left hand side, this is where most of the latest updates will be taking place. This is the station area. Again, consists of 4 main platforms. One is a dead end, and 2 platforms on the other side are a passing loop. And then over the back there is the ballast sidings. And then obviously running around this area, the layout just loops round past the door of the garage and then back into the TMD area. Now this junction here, this is the loop that allows trains to go from the incline over in the back corner onto the main track, so they can come up the incline or go down this track and then through into that little tunnel over there behind the scrap wagons. And then obviously I wanted to create the idea of like a loop where a train could sit in it and then you can get shots of another one passing. And I think I've managed to capture that really well, and it works well with the 2 inclines that I've got as well. So on the right of the layout is the TMD area, like I mentioned earlier. This part is pretty much finished to a stage where I'm happy with. There's still some bits that need to be doing, like little detailing bits, but apart from that, the main bulk of it is pretty much done, and I'm happy with how it is. Now this area here not only acts as a TMD, but it is the main junction for connecting the lower level and the top level. Now the lower level, as you know, goes down to the Fiddle Yard, and the top layer is mainly for scenery. So basically the track plan, I'll put it on screen now, but there's basically 2 main running lines in the front here and then a back loop over there. Now this back loop acts as the start of the inclines, and it also acts as a loop for freight to sit in while passenger trains pass by. It's a single track loop, as are the inclines, and there's an incline which runs down and then there's an incline which runs up this way, or vice versa depending on what way the train's facing. Most of the detail in here has obviously been done by myself, and like I said, there are still a few bits that need to be fitted. The 3rd rail has been added, and there is an engine shed which also needs to be weathered and detailed properly. But apart from that, that is kind of, you guys have seen the TMD area so many times, but I thought it would give you kind of like a better insight as to how it is. Now on the top of the scenic board, I was originally planning in this area to make it the top layer kind of run all the way around past my workbench. But what I'm going to do is actually keep it as a workbench, and I've cut off the scenic board there at the edge. Just need to tidy this bit up here when I can, and finish scratch building the hotel and finish the industrial park. But it acts as like a nice scenic break, and then I just scratch built some retaining walls and bridges to kind of act as the trains are disappearing through. Now over on the left side of the layout, again we're looking at it as if we're looking in from the door of the garage. The main bulk of the station, as I said earlier, consists of 4 running tracks, 1 dead end, and then the ballast sidings. The plan here is to kind of make an industrial scene, not an industrial scene, sorry, a town scene over this area here. This plank of wood here has been added so we can bank it off, and the hole there will act as an area where a board can be fitted for the station building. That will mean that there will be no station building on top, and I will have to probably scratch build 2 shelters with stairs running down, effectively down into the road below. I'm still undecided what I want to do, whether I want to do kind of like a village scene or whether I want to do kind of more like a modern town, you know, with some kind of bigger buildings. I think that's more what I'm inclined to go for. And then I'm going to kind of gradually fade it out into kind of countryside, and then this bit can all be kind of countryside around this side. But it gives you a rough idea as to where the layout curves off. As you can see, the bridge there as well is where the incline goes down to the bottom layer. The reason why the incline is in the middle and not at the edge of the layout is because originally this wall here went all the way across. So you can imagine where the incline is, and actually where you can see that wall underneath, that is where the edge of the garage, or the room in the garage, was. But we actually managed to clear out the rest of the garage in front of it, and we ended up taking over all of it, which is obviously better for me because I get a bigger layout. Then over this side of the station, as you can see, there's a main junction here as to where all the loops join together and go back into 2 tracks. There is also a crossover point in the middle. Now this acts again as a way for the trains to come off of the incline, join over where this Pullman carriage is, where my finger is, and then come around and run across onto the up track. The main ballast siding consists of 2 basic sidings and a run round for locos over there. There is a crossing here for any units, any vehicles, sorry. And what I plan to do is kind of build this up pretty much to about like here maybe, and then just have kind of like a countryside, more you know, more of like a rural scene, rather than more industrial. I think that'll work a little bit better, and it gives me a chance to use some of my old Metcalf buildings and things like that. Okay, so coming down into the first Fiddle Yard, it's very difficult for me to get a good shot here, but hopefully you guys can kind of get a rough idea of how many lanes are in there. There was originally 8 lanes, but you know, because I keep buying stock, we ended up having to sacrifice this first lane and make it into 2 points to link round into the second Fiddle Yard. At the moment it's being acted as like a loco storage as well as for the wagons themselves, and then the incline runs up over this side by the switchboard. Both Fiddle Yards are currently wired up using Traintronic points. There are no dropper wires in the Fiddle Yards, which means I can't have the train lights on when both points are closed, but to be honest that doesn't really bother me, as it really is just a storage lane. And as soon as I flip the points anyway, you know, the train just moves when I want it to. They're all wired to a basic switchboard. It's not very well detailed, and it's probably not the best bit of carpentry you've ever seen in your life, or electrics. And these are all linked on to a basic Gauge Master DC controller. So the wiring again is very basic, but for me it does the job, and you know, it helps with my basic understanding of electrics. Again, you can see the second of the Fiddle Yards. There are 8 lanes in there. You can probably roughly see from the point motors. Some of the point motors are actually mounted on top, this just made it a little bit easier for us to fit them, but some are actually put underneath because they're obviously too close together to sit on top. Like I said again, this is just used mainly as a storage for locos at the moment and wagons, and to get the locos out of this section we have to run it through the other fiddle yard, and then they can go up the respective inclines depending on how depending on what way the loco is facing. Okay, so there we go, that concludes the layout tour. Hopefully you guys get a better understanding of where everything is based on the layout. I will hopefully the track plans as well throughout the video made it a little bit clearer compared to, you know, the camera angles and things like that. It's very difficult because of the gaps between the two baseboards for me to get a camera in there and actually get a better shot. I do need to add lighting to my lower level, but I do wish, if I was to change a couple of things, I do wish I'd have made the gap between the top layer and the lower level, the lower layer, a lot bigger. That would have allowed me to get in there much easier. I mean, despite being a small person, it's still very difficult for me to get in there and fit point motors and things like that. So that would have been one thing that I'd have changed. And I'd have also probably had a double track incline rather than a single one, because again, that would have helped me out massively. If I'd have had the whole shed rather than, you know, like 3/4 of it and then had to extend it afterwards, it might have made it a little bit easier to have a double track one at the time. But there we go, that concludes the layout tour. As I said, I hope you guys have enjoyed this. It's a little bit different and I'm not really too sure how it's actually going to come out, but hopefully you now have a better understanding of where everything is on the layout. There'll be a running session to follow probably next week sometime, or towards the end of the week, and there should be an update at the end of October, but I'm still waiting on the switches and everything to come for all the signals and various things like that, so we'll see how it goes. So thank you for watching, and I will catch you in the next one.